So, you've been applying to tons of jobs, but you're not getting any hits whatsoever. Sound familiar? For those who've just landed on this channel, welcome. My name is Sat Sehgal. I'm a data scientist, but at the same time, I have over 15 years recruiting data scientists, data executives, and building high-performance teams. So today, I want to share my tips and tricks that have worked for me in the past to help you through your journey of getting that next job. I know especially for new graduates or new people coming to the country, this is a very difficult thing to accomplish. So I want to do my best to educate you as much as I can. So in this video, I'm going to do my best to help you and improve your chances of getting your resume noticed by up to 75%. Most Fortune 500 companies use something called an ATS, or better known as an application tracking system. That sits between you and the actual recruiter. And some are very sophisticated and use high-powered AI algorithms, while others are very basic. But at the end of the day, there's a 75% rejection rate. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 tips that's going to help you not only work with the ATS, but also get your resume in the hands of the right people. Step 1, make your resume ATS friendly. What that means is strip out any complex fonts, strip out any images. There is a resounding 20% of applicants that actually add in images in their resume. The problem is an ATS can't parse an image. As a result, you automatically go to the rejection pile. About 55% of resumes out there had some kind of grammatical error. And as a result, the ATS is going to reject it. So you need to go over your resume with a fine-tooth comb. You need to pick out the relevant experience that you think is going to work for you and that is applicable to that job. And categorize your resume in a few important categories: relevant experience, education, any kind of certifications, and any relevant projects that you've worked on. Any kind of community work is also a bonus. Step 2, make sure your title and what you're doing is relevant to the job you're applying at. If you've got a degree in culinary arts, for example, and you want to get into a mid-management data science role, it's not exactly going to be the right fit. So you want to make sure the job that you're applying for has some relevancy. And step 3, probably the most important one, especially when working with ATSs, make sure you are using the right keywords. You need to SEO your resume. For those who don't know that, search engine optimize your resume. And what that basically means is you need to make sure that you are hitting the right keywords that job is looking for. Now, what I'm not telling you to do is go and fake a whole bunch of keywords on your resume, because you will get blacklisted. There are AI algorithms out there strong enough to identify people that are just putting crap on their resume when it really shouldn't be there. But then you gotta ask yourself, there's so many different job descriptions out there and so many different jobs out there. How are you gonna take all these different jobs, pick out the right keywords, and then match it against your resume? Well, there's a lot of tools online that you can use. Wordcloud is a really great tool. What that allows you to do, it allows you to go into the actual website, put in a file. So let's say we're gonna take a job description. So I'm pulling a random job description off of Indeed, data science, for example. Let's pick this one, senior data analyst from FreshBooks. So if I were to go ahead and I would open and copy and paste all of this into Wordcloud, what it's gonna do is it's actually gonna give me all the keywords that this job looks at. So if I were to look at this specific job, predictive, data, FreshBooks, marketing, stakeholders are among some of the most common keywords. And if you want to go and actually look at the word list, it'll show you the frequency. So predictive showed up 6 times, data showed up 6 times, stakeholders 5 times, and so forth. What an ATS does is it'll actually go through your resume and it'll look for certain keywords. Now, these may not be the keywords that the recruiters put in, but at the end of the day, these are a good start to help you understand whether or not you are even on the right track. Now, while this is a great tool, you know me, I like to spice things up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to build this thing in Python. The key difference is that it's going to allow you to go in and be able to customize the keywords that you want. If there's certain keywords that you're looking for, or if there's certain keywords you don't want in there, you can go ahead and customize it. And the beauty of this is you can drop all the different job descriptions in one file, and you can run this script and it'll parse every single job description and tell you the keywords for all of them. But for the purpose of simplicity today, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you I'm going to show you the same job. We're going to build a word cloud out of it in Python. Now, there's even more creative ways to get around this. You can use something like web scraping. The problem is companies like Indeed don't really like you web scraping their website. It's against their terms and conditions. And so you need to make sure that when you go onto a website and you try to web scrape their data, that they actually allow you to do it. Now, I've gone ahead and actually developed this code for us in Python to review, but I'm going to go through it line by line and explain to you exactly what's happening. And I'm using a technique called natural language processing. And what that essentially does is it'll take the words, it'll take the text, it'll break it down into words. It'll then take those words and categorize it into verbs, adverbs, and so forth. And then we can do some analytics against it. How many times did the word show up? Do I want this particular word to be there or not? And this is what I would call just the basics of natural language processing. You can take natural language processing in so many different directions. The kind of stuff that I've developed in the past for companies and clients, we can go through that another time. But right now, I want to make sure you understand the basics. Now, if you have not, or you don't have any experience whatsoever in Python, I encourage you to go down, look in the description. I've actually created an 18 module Python for Beginners course, absolutely free for you to go ahead and look at. But for now, what I want to do is I want to help you guys build this Wordcloud application. It's something you can even put on your resume that you've done. But more importantly, I want to zero in on the ability for you to go and take different job description, parse that information, and be able to match it to your resume. And when you do find the keywords, make sure that when you tailor your resume, that you're tweaking it and you're being honest, because if not, you will get caught and you don't want to get blacklisted. So let's also help our friends in recruitment so that when they actually get the resumes, they're the resumes that match the jobs that they also want to fill. But more importantly, it's also the jobs that you're going to be applying for that increase your possibility of landing in the right hands. And given that ATSs will automatically dump out 75% of resumes out there, if you can get past this and work nicely with the ATS, you're in a good spot. So let's get started. All right, so all I've gone ahead is I've went to indeed.ca. I put in data science Google. I was just hoping to see if there's an actual job we can get from Google, but it looks like there isn't. So I just went down and I saw FreshBooks. It's a brand that I recognize, that others recognize. I clicked on that, and all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this document, I'm gonna copy and paste it. And again, there are ways to do things like web scrape this, but because web scraping isn't exactly legal, it's probably something we don't want to do. So I'm going to open up PyCharm, and I'm just going to get rid of everything. I just copied and pasted it. The same job description was there. So it's Senior Data Analyst, Data Science. It's with FreshBooks. This is what you'll be doing, solution delivery, so forth, and all that other kind of fun stuff. So what I want to do is I want to be able to take this entire text block here, and I want to be able to return the most valuable keywords in a word cloud. So the question is, how do you even begin doing that? So let's take a look. So for the purpose of showing you guys today, I'm going to switch things up and I'm going to open up Jupyter Notebooks. So Jupyter Notebooks is a great platform to teach people. And so what I've done is I've already went ahead and imported a whole bunch of different modules within Python. The first one is NLTK, and that is the Natural Language Toolkit. And so that's what's going to have all of the different parsing ability for us to take different tokenizers, whether they be sentence tokenizers or word tokenizers. And we'll go over that in a second. We're also going to be importing something called stop words. And what stop words are words that are filler words that we typically don't want to capture in something like a word cloud. So for example, and, I, you, we, they're not really descriptive in terms of the actual job title. Like you're not going to base your keyword search on you or we. So what it does is it has some pre-built words which are called stop words in the NLTK corpus. And we can use that to basically filter out any of those words. Then we're going to talk a little bit about stemming and lemmatizing. And we'll get into that as I get closer to that section as well. We're going to look at some frequency distributions because I want to make sure that when I'm plotting these keywords, that it's actually showing me the right keywords in the right order. And then last, I want to be able to take the word cloud and actually create the word cloud out of it. So there's a module by Wordcloud called Wordcloud. And last but not least, I want to be able to see all of this in the actual Jupyter notebook. So I want to be able to see all the graphs, and that's really what this display function here is for. All right, so let's get started. So the first block of code here, what this really means is I'm saying I have that file called scratch1.txt, which is right here, scratch1.txt, and this is where we've copied and pasted everything. I've gone ahead and I've said reveal this in Finder, right click, then hit down Option, and then copy the path name, And that's essentially what is sitting right there. So that is just basically reading the file. It's saying, I want you to open this file and I want you to do this in read mode. And again, if this is not familiar to you, go back to the Python tutorial I've created. There's an entire section on file management, which will actually show you how to do this and what this means. Next piece is once I actually take that, I'm going to read this file called F, because what I've done is I've said take this entire thing and put this under F. So I'm going to do an f.read against it. I'm going to lowercase everything because I don't want to deal with capitals. And then I want to strip it for any kind of white spaces. So if I go ahead and do this, all right, so now if I wanted to see what's in this, I just hit text because I'm printing what's stored in here, and you can see it's got this entire job description in here. All right, cool. So now that we have this printed out, we know what we're looking at. The next thing I want to do is something called tokenize this. So what tokenizing means is I'm going to show you two different types of tokenizers, and then I'm going to tell you the one we're working with. So what tokenized sent means is I'm going to take this entire text and I'm going to split this up by sentence. So every single time you see a period, it's gonna basically say that's a new line. And the whole purpose behind this is if I want to do text analysis through looking at a sentence. So more specifically, if I want to look at a phrase or a conversation that someone's having, I don't want to look at individual words in that conversation. I actually want to look at the sentence. So it makes sense to go ahead and use a sentence tokenizer in here. Now, there are use cases as to why you want to use a sentence tokenizer, even in a resume analysis. And I've got a different project that I'm working on the side that actually looks at your resume, and it looks at the total sentence because it's trying to pick up patterns in the sentence. But for the purpose of building a word cloud, you actually don't need a sentence tokenizer. You need the word tokenizer. You want to look at every single word in there and see whether or not there's a match. But let's go ahead and print this out just so I can show you. So when I do this, everywhere there's a period, essentially it's broken that down into a new sentence. And it's taken every one of those sentences and it's made a string out of it. Now, if I go ahead and print out the word tokenizer, what you'll see what it's done now is it's actually taken every single word and it's broken it down. But if you see, there's a whole bunch of words in here like s, a, we, do, that I really don't care about. So the next piece is, well, how do we start taking care of some of this? And this is where the stop words come in. So let me erase this. Let me get rid of the sent tokenizer because we're not going to be using it. And so now I'm going to introduce a new variable called stop words. And stop words is going to look at different words in the English vocabulary. And that's getting pulled from right up here. From NLTK corpus import stop words. So now that I've actually initialized stop words down here, right here, it's going to say, okay, so now I know that I need to pick all the words that are in English. And I want to make sure that there's no duplicates anywhere, so that's why we put in the set, or that's why I at least put in the set. And then I want to return stop words. So let's see what that returns. So these are all the words that people really don't care about. Might, my, you, itself, they, will, etc., etc., etc. So when I look at all of these words, these are words that even when I do an analysis on, they're not going to add a lot of value to me. Now, I'm just going to show you this, but you don't really need to do this for this particular module. But let's say I wanted to add additional words. Let's say there was words that in there that I was totally against. Like I didn't want to work for a specific company, for example. I can put in the company name. Or if I didn't want to have to deal with Python programming, for example, you can put in, make sure there's, take out all the Python stuff. Give me all the job descriptions without Python. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. But in this case, all I'm doing is I'm saying take this existing stop words dictionary or list, so to speak, and then go ahead and update it with these additional words. So I just added in Mr. Smith used today and a whole bunch of different characters that you would see. So when I go ahead and print this, it of course is going to give me an error because we forgot this at the end. And when I run that, so all it's done is it's just ran it for me right now. So if I go ahead and print stop words, so if I go ahead and print stop words again, now it's actually included some of these different characters that I've put in that weren't in there. So Mr's in there, Smith is in there, and so forth. So this is a good way to add in your own custom dictionary. All right, cool. So now that I have all my stop words, it's great. So I'm gonna get rid of this just so that we don't have this cluttering up our screen. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our tokenized text or tokenized words and we're gonna filter them out for the stop words. So what I'm saying is, return another variable called filtered sent. It should be filtered word, but it doesn't matter. Filtered sent, filtered word, whatever you want to call it. And I'm saying for W and tokenized words. So go ahead and iterate through this tokenized word variable and then take everything in there, make it lowercase, and only return the words in this list called filtered sent if that word is not a stop word. So I'm going to say that again. What it's essentially doing is it's saying iterate through this entire thing here, this tokenized word, look at every single word, and only add it into filtered sent if this word is not in this list. And so what we're doing is we're essentially filtering out all of that garbage data that we don't want. So when I go ahead and do this, I have a new variable called filtered sent, and then when I print it, now it's going to show me all the words, and there's some that'll slip because I haven't taken this one out, apostrophe S, but for the most part, it's gotten rid of all the and and the and all that other kind of stuff. So I have a filtered word list now. Great. So now I can just replace this with something a little bit more clean. It'll show filtered words, and here's all the filtered words in there. And so these are the words that I particularly care about doing a search against because these are the filtered words. So now the next thing we want to do is I want to go and look at every single one of these words. I want to say, is this a noun? Is this a verb? Is this an adjective? What is this? And the reason why I want to do that is because when you look at certain skills on your resume, most of them are going to be either nouns or verbs. And so there's an actual way for me to go ahead and look at all the different skill sets and just isolate those in my word cloud. The challenge when you do word cloud online, it'll take every single word in there. And it'll even take the as and thes and all that other kind of stuff. And when you do the word cloud against it, sometimes it may miss some of the more important words because there's a non-value add word that's taking up a spot. And so the whole purpose behind this is for us to go and isolate. And you can change this around. If you want to look at nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns, whatever, you can change it to your heart's content. There's an entire dictionary set up with an NLTK that'll tell you, how you filter out nouns, how you filter out nouns singular, nouns plural, and all that other kind of stuff. And we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we go there, I need to go ahead and tag all of these words. So for that, I've got this little script here that says tagged words, NLTK, POS tag, filtered sent. So what this is saying is it's saying, take a look at all of these words in this variable now, and go ahead and do a POS tag. So POS tag is a built-in function within the NLTK module. And so what I'm saying is iterate through every single word in tagged words and print it out. Do the POS tagging against this entire list over here. Then store that into tagged words. And then we're going to iterate word for word, and it's going to tell us whether it's a pronoun, noun, and all that other stuff. So watch this. So now that I do this, it's going to say FreshBooks is an RB, and I got to look that up. I think that's a verb or something. But in the description, I'm going to put down what everything here means. So there's an adjective, there's a noun, there's a verb, there's all this other kind of stuff in here. And there's some that you're just not going to want to care about, like this we can get rid of. I can even add that up here if I wanted, but you guys can play around with this stuff as well. So let's just say all I care about isolating is the verbs and the nouns. How would I go about doing that? All right, so I need to put all of these filtered tagged words somewhere. So I'm going to create a new list. I'm going to say it's called filtered POS. And this is where I'm going to go and just look at the ones that I care about. So we're going to focus on nouns and verbs. And let me see if I have anything else in my code. And adjectives as well. All right. So I want to take out anything that has CD, that has, VBG and all this other kind of stuff. So, and I want to store whatever I want to keep in filtered POS. So I've initialized that list. And so now this next block of code is going to say, and I've just made up this variable 1. So for 1 in tagged words, which is all of these words here, if the actual, so remember this is a tuple, whatever. And so for me to now go ahead and isolate the second element in this tuple, I want to pull the second element. Remember, 0 would be the first element, 1 would be the second element. So I'm going to say if the second element is equal to a noun, or a noun singular, or a noun pronoun, or whatever all this other stuff is. I looked it up before, and it makes sense. I promise it does. But regardless, you can put whatever you want here. You can add in anything here. And like I said, I'll put a link in the description, or I'll put in something in the description that tells you what everything stands for. And so I'm saying, as long as that second element has that in there, append it to this list. So when I do this, it's going to say, all right, I found 242 words that meet your criteria. I wonder how many there were before. Let's take a quick look. So if I do len tagged words, there were 339 words. So we got that down to 252 words. So essentially, we got rid of almost 100 words just by this simple, quick algorithm here. And look how quick that was too. So let's add all this back in. All right, let's say I wanted to see all the words actually. So if I go ahead and just do filtered POS. Oh, I actually added to the list and I should know. So I need to go back and initialize the list to be empty, which is right there. Reprint that, and now it'll show me all the different words in here that make up that 242. And if you can see, it actually fits our criteria here. So it's only got pulled in the words that actually matter to us. Now, the beauty about this is just one technique you can use in NLP. But imagine you're doing speech text, or if you're doing text mining using tickets, or you're doing a sentiment analysis using words. This is the exact same technique you would use. As a matter of fact, some of the largest organizations that have chatbots still use NLP as your primary backend. So what you're learning here, guys, is completely cutting edge, kind of. All right, so let's just say you wanted to only pull, get a sample. I just put this little snippet in here to say, pull the first element in this tuple and only return the first 5. So if you wanted to see what that looked like, and I have word. There you go. So it's just gonna go ahead and pull the first 5, ambition, vision, lot, high performing, and team, and so forth. So far, this job is actually saying these are the key words. Now, we don't know what frequency, we're gonna look at that in a second. But if you just wanted to get a sample, that's how you do it. Now, before doing any port stemming or any lemmatizing, let me go ahead and show you. If I wanted to just get an idea of what the top 10 most common words were, it's a very simple way to do this. Here's what it's doing, is I'm actually now using the frequency distribution module of NLTK, which I pulled over here. And now I'm saying, go ahead and take all these different words, filtered sentence, put it in here, and return it back into a distribution for me. And then set top 10 words equal to an F distribution, most common. So most common is a method within this function. And I'm saying, give me the top 10 and then let's print them out. So what this is gonna do is this is actually gonna say, hey, these are the top 10 most common words that appear in here. So this slipped through. Again, I probably forgot to take it out up top. But data is obviously the most commonly used with 11 times, with it being used 11 times. FreshBooks, 6. Predictive, 6. So now when you look at this, in your resume, you're probably not going to want to optimize for a colon or FreshBooks because that's the company we're applying for. But data, definitely. Predictive, yes. You want to focus on something with team building. You want to focus on some kind of marketing skills you've had. You want to tell them that you've worked with stakeholders. You want to tell them that you've worked with products, whether it be a product manager, whether it be just work with products in general. Something about opportunity and analyst. So these right now, what this is saying is, hey, if you were to go ahead and just SEO your resume on the top 10, or in this case, top 8 words, these are some of the words you may want to consider. And so then you got to go back to yourself and ask yourself, are you a data person? Are you somebody who's got the predictive capability that they're looking for? Are you a team player? If you're not a data person and you're more of a marketing person, that's fine. You can still go ahead and apply for the job, but you need to set your expectations low that given this is a data scientist role. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is something called stemming and lemmatizing. So both of these techniques are widely used in things like indexing and SEO analysis and even web search results and so forth. But there's a key difference between the two. So when you look at something called stemming your words, what it's doing is it's taking your word down to the root. And so essentially if any word ends with something like ed or ize or it's a plural, it'll actually remove that and it'll take it down to its root word. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So the first thing I gotta do is I gotta initialize my stemmer. And to do that, I'm going to set it as PS, and I'm going to say port stemmer, which is going to be the class in this case. So next, I'm going to take the stem word, and I'm going to say, all right, let's go look at the filtered sentence here that we've got. My stemmed words, I'm going to say for W in filtered sent, append any of the stemmed words. So here's what that means in English. So let me go ahead and print this out. All right, so if you look at some of these words, ambitious is ambiti. Vision launch, there's probably some other words here as well. High perform, instead of high performing, it took out the ing, now you have high perform. And I did this actually in the original word because I wanted it to be more comparable. So I wanted to literally start from the top. So you can actually look at every single word here, word for word, and you can see whether, how this actually compares. If you wanted to look at it as a sentence, you would just do something like print dot. You're just joining your list together here. And when you do that, I should space that out. Now you actually have it as a sentence. So you can now compare this. Fresh, ambition, it's supposed to be ambition, vision, and so forth. So the challenge with this, when you do stemming, is stemming only looks at the context of that word. So sometimes when you stem a word, it just doesn't make sense. I personally haven't used stemming myself too much. I use lemmatizing more because I find lemmatizing is a little bit more accurate. But to be honest, in this case, you don't need to do either, because what you're looking for is you're looking for the exact keyword they've used. So you don't want to stem it or lematize it. I'm just showing you the difference. So if I were to go ahead and change this to lemmatization, I would go ahead and initialize my lemmatizer. And then again, against the same filtered stem, I print it out and I kind of do the same print statement except change this to lem. And so here, FreshBooks, Ambition, Vision, it's a little bit more, it makes more sense. So if there are any words in here that are lemmatized, it's going to be in context of the sentence. So it's actually going to be a little bit more accurate. But again, we don't need to use either of those in this case. So I'm going to remove all of this stuff. This was just for me to help you understand and introduce you to stemming and lemmatizing when you're using it in natural language processing. So when would you want to use things like this? Well, when you want to do things like text mining and you want to see whether or not a customer has used a specific word like happy or happiness or happier. And in this case, what you want to do is you actually want to categorize the text speech into something. So if you want to use happy as your lemmatized word, for example, you can say, all right, great. So I'm going to look at all these folks, all these people that have given some kind of a review, and then come back and say how many people actually use some kind of a happy sentiment in there. Whereas in this case, what we're looking for is an exact match. I want to know exactly what's written in the job description that is applicable to me. Now there's other methods as well that we can get into that are much, much more sophisticated, I would say, especially when you're getting to something like vector analysis, which will look at how close another word is to the word that they've used so that when you want to use a synonym, it doesn't make sense to use that synonym. So that's a lot more complicated, and that's probably going to be a couple of tutorials down, but we're just focusing on the basics right now of how you get this word cloud set up. So let's continue going. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to change this up slightly. And what I want to do is now I actually want to plot this on some kind of a graph. So if I were to go and just slightly change this, I'm going to do something like this, which is and I'm going to explain what this means in just a second. So what I've done here is I've said, go ahead and show me all of the 300 words or 200 words that were left or whatever it was. Go ahead and sift through the top 50%. So return back 100 words. But of that, I want you to go ahead and plot the most common words, and I want you to cap it after 30 words. So once I have 30 words here, let's cap it. I don't want it to be cumulative. I just want it to be, so basically I don't want to have data and then FreshBooks compile on top of it. I want to know individually what that looks like. And so when I do something like a plot.show here, which you just saw anyways, it's going to actually go ahead and now print out the most common words that are used. And the reason why this is important is when you're doing a word cloud, sometimes just based on the color or the text of the word cloud, it's hard to see. So this is a good secondary way to go ahead and look at some of the most top words in there. All right, so last but not least, now if I want the word cloud to work, the word cloud needs to be passed a text or a string. I can't actually go ahead and pass a list like this. So what I'm saying here is let's create a new variable and let's dedicate that to be a string. And let's sift through this entire list here, this filtered sent list over here. And let's just keep adding it. And then right after the word gets added, let's add apostrophe. So let me show you what that means. Essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to create one big list. Or sorry, one big sentence. So if you look at this, no longer is this actually in a list form anymore. So this is just a list of tuples here, or tuples, whatever you want to call it. What I've said now is just throw one big string at it, and we're going to go ahead and dissect it, because that's what a word cloud needs. It needs just one big string. All right, so now, the moment you've all been waiting for. If I go ahead and add this last block of code in here, what I'm saying is go ahead and initialize the word cloud class, and I want to use a method called generate new text. So I need to build a word class, I want to generate it, and I want to use this field called new text. So go ahead and generate it. I want to use a bilinear model to show it. Don't plot any axes, otherwise it gets messy. I'll show you what that looks like if you turn it on and then plot it. So when I go ahead and do this, there's your word cloud. And so if I turn this on, it doesn't really add a lot of value, to be honest. It just makes it look ugly. So if I have these, it doesn't really help in any way, to be honest with you. But if you turn this off, you now have a really cool looking word cloud. And again, when you're looking at this, it's hard for me to go ahead and see whether or not standard, for example, is more important than development, which is why it's important to have something like this as a view as well. And so now if I wanted to go ahead and take a look at something like this for a whole bunch of different jobs, it'd be just as easy as me saying, create a for loop here or a while loop that says keep sifting through all the files until you get to the end of the directory with no more files left, and for each one of those, go ahead and build a word cloud. And it's really that simple. And so the positive of this is a great visual for me to go ahead and see, have I used all the keywords? And again, this isn't a place where we're going to start cheating. That's not the whole intention of this. But it's, do I have the right keywords within my own resume? All right, cool. So that gives you a good idea of how to create something called a word cloud. Now, what we've done here is we've built this word cloud based off of single words. So it's only going to show you, data, marketing, team, and so forth. And while that's good, I want to take this a step further, something that you can't exactly get on word clouds. At least I'm not aware of you can do it. Everything that I've showed you so far, for the most part, you can do on word clouds. You can even enable stop words. I'm just not sure if you can do a custom one, but you can go ahead and add in stop words. I actually validated that. What I'm going to teach you now is a little bit more advanced. I'm going to introduce you to something called ngrams within natural language processing. What an ngram is it's going to take your words, so it's going to take the entire text, which is going to be the job description in this case. And what it's going to do is it's going to take every second word and it's going to pair it together. So for example, if my sentence said, my name is Sats. So with an ngram, you can actually specify whether you want it to be a bigram, trigram, or 4, 5, 6 grams or whatever you want in there. What that means is when it's going to take a specific sentence, it's actually going to break it out by its neighboring word. So a bigram would be something like my name, or name is, or is Sats. A trigram would be my name is, or name is Sats. So it's going to take the adjacent words next to it, and if it's a bigram, it's going to take 2 words. If it's a trigram, it's going to take 3 words. And the importance behind having a bigram and a trigram is that sometimes it can tell you a bit of a different story. So although data is a keyword here, my question would be data what? Is this a data scientist? Is this a data analyst? Is this data processing? What exactly is that with data? So that would be my next question, because I want to zero in a little bit more and make sure that I'm really getting this right. So again, I've gone ahead and developed the code already for bigrams and trigrams. I'm going to go ahead and import all the libraries again. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to keep this somewhat separate from what we learned above. And the whole point of this is, after we've created it, I want to go back and look at the bigram or the trigram, depending on what we create. We may create both. And then I want to go back and compare it to this word cloud here that we actually created to see whether or not there's a similar story or if there's something additional we can put in our resume. So I went and I created a function, and I call this function find ngrams. What this function is going to do is it's going to take text, which is mandatory. I set the default value of n equals 2, so that basically means that I said by default I want this to be a bigram, but when you actually call the function, you can change this to n equals 3, 4, 5, or whatever, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to initiate an empty list called bigram. I'm going to take the text, and this time I'm going to use the sentence tokenizer. And the reason why I want to use the sentence tokenizer and not the word tokenizer is I want to analyze sentence by sentence what words are next to each other. I can't really do that with a word tokenizer because there is no word next to a tokenized word. It's just the word itself. With a sentence, on the other hand, I can actually do some pattern analysis to say, all right, in this sentence, is there a specific theme that they're trying to call out? So that's why we're going to use the sentence tokenizer. Then we're going to take that sentence and further dissect it down into a line because I want to now get the bigrams. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the text from above, which is the job description, and I'm going to go ahead and, so this text here is represented by this text here, which is just our job description. And I'm repeating some of the operation. I wanted to show you a different way to do it, which is list comprehension. I basically said, take that text, split it into its individual words, lowercase it, make sure it's not in a stop word, and save that to filtered text. Then I said, take your filtered text, and remember, this needs to be a string, so that's why I'm using this join function here. And I'm saying, pass it into my find ngram function. And if I wanted this to be a trigram, see how I have n equals to 2? Whenever you have something defined by default, you don't have to enter in that variable here because it's going to say the default is 2. It's only when you want to change it, where I would do n is equal to 3, then this will override the n is equal to 2 and it'll do a trigram. But let's first focus on the bigram. So let's go ahead and print this out. And so this is what a bigram looks like. it's going to take some of the filtered words in there. And again, some of these characters escaped because I didn't put them in my stop words, but I just want to give you the idea of how this works. These words are actually next to each other in a sentence. So ambitious, vision period, launched 2003. The only time where you may have a word in between here is if it was a stop word. So this may have said launched in 2003, but in is a stop word, so it's already removed it. Getting started there, and so forth. So it's taken every 2 words. Now if I wanted this to be a trigram, I would just go here and say n is equal to 3, print it, and now it's a trigram. Ambitious, vision period, launch 2003. Now all of this stuff, this is great, but it doesn't really mean anything to me yet because I have to go ahead and do some more analytics against it. So I'm going to just get rid of this. So the next function, or the next block of code that I wrote, I want to store the frequency of how many times these bigrams show up. So if there's a bigram that shows up more than once, what I want to do is I want to say if that bigram is not already in the list, set it equal to 0, so I initialize a key and a value for it because it's a dictionary. However, if it's already there, then take that count and increment it by 1. Now all I'm doing in this one here, I'll let you sort of digest this one later. I do have a tutorial on lambda functions, so go ahead and take a look at that in the Master Python for Beginners course. It'll show you what exactly it's doing here, but in a nutshell, it's sorting everything from highest to lowest in terms of frequency, and print that. Now, typically with an n-gram, you wouldn't expect a high frequency because you wouldn't expect 2 words to be repeated several times within the actual job posting. It would be repetitive. However, when you do find a match, that's a strong indication that they really want that skill. Something dealing with stakeholders, they probably want you to work with stakeholders. Data science showed up twice. Machine learning showed up twice. Predictive scoring showed up twice. Marketing stakeholders showed up twice. So now when you start looking at this, it's starting to paint a slightly different picture. It's giving you a little bit more detail on the types of things that they actually want. So no longer are we just focusing on data. It's saying, hey, listen, yeah, I want you to have data. And that's a strong indication from this word cloud here. But at the same time, I've mentioned in this posting twice that I want some kind of data science skill set. So that should be a good indication to you to say, okay, I think they really want somebody with data science and machine learning and somebody who can manage and work with stakeholders. All right, so we have a lot of bigrams here. I mean, really, I can eyeball the top ones here, but let's just say I wanted to print those out in a scenario where I did have a lot more matches. Now, where would you expect something like a bigram, a trigram to be helpful? In my experience, dealing with contracts, for example, there's a lot of repetition in a lot of contracts on financial terms, on performance. So there could be a good candidate there for you to say, okay, for a specific company they want, or they're really focusing in this area. Or even when you're looking at a sentiment analysis. So one thing I haven't done here is I haven't lemmatized any of these words. So I could have a word here, or a scenario here where I can say, you know, growing is the same thing as grow or growers. And because I haven't lemmatized this, there's probably more combinations that sit here. I just haven't done it because I don't need to do it for this kind of analysis. But for something like a sentiment analysis, I would definitely lemmatize the words, bring it down to a point where I can start grouping those words together and then see if there's a pattern or not. And I would do that in both cases, up here as well as down here as well. All right, so all I'm saying here is let's go ahead and look at that list, the sorted n-gram frequency, which is this list right here, all these terms here. Print out the top 25. We got to join them again because it's got to be within a sentence, but I want to iterate over every one of these. And because when you look at this, this is a tuple. For example, if I look at documents regarding, see these brackets here? That's one tuple right there. Then there's a second tuple, which is right here. And what I'm saying is I want to focus on that second tuple. I want to focus on outside tuple. So if you see there's 2 tuples in here, there's an inner tuple. Let me get a better one here. Documents. If you look at here, there's an inner tuple, which starts right before documents and goes after reading. And then there's an outer tuple, which shows the actual frequency as well. So what I'm saying is go ahead and iterate through all of these and only pull out the first element because I want to display documents and regarding in this case. So let's print that and see what we get. So we get stakeholders period, data science, machine learning, predictive scoring, marketing stakeholders, data analysts, analyst data, solutions, business stakeholders. So now this is actually starting to paint a little bit more of a story, right? If I go ahead and look at just this, data, marketing, product, predictive, so I get that. What I don't get is I actually don't get machine learning out of that one. So when I go down here and I see machine learning, which makes sense, this is a data science job. So let's go ahead and display that in a word cloud and see what that looks like. Now there's one interesting thing that I've done here before I go ahead and display this. What you'll notice is I've taken these bigrams and I've gone ahead and put an underscore in between the two words. So if I look at data science up here, right there, I said when I'm going to print it out, join it with an underscore. And the reason why I did that is I want the word cloud to treat this as one word. Because we have to pass it a string, it needs to know that data and science are together as one tuple. So I just said, let's put an underscore there just to make it easy. So when I print this, and it may take a few seconds to render, now it's telling me, okay, performing team, machine learning, marketing stakeholders, ambitious vision, data science, business stakeholders, data analyst. So now predictive scoring. So now it's giving me a little bit more detail to go ahead and tailor my resume or to see whether or not I have these right keywords in there as well. Now, if I go back all the way up here and I change this entire thing, and I'm going to get rid of this because it's a lot. But if I go all the way up here and I add in right there, if I go here and say n is equal to 3, I'm going to create a trigram out of all of this now. So when I print this, what you'll notice here before we render that, predictive scoring solutions, marketing stakeholders, ambitious vision, underscore period. So now, again, it's giving you a little bit more high performance team working towards. Now, some of this you should be able to use your own common sense to say, I'm not going to go ahead and optimize for started, there's apostrophe. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But now when I look at this trigram, it gives me a little bit more of a view. Now, if you think that 25 is too much because this is very, very cluttered up, I can always go ahead and limit this down to something like, let's do 10. So when I do 10, marketing stakeholders, getting started there, predictive scoring solutions, marketing. So again, it gives you a little bit more context. And you can go down to 4, you can go down to 5. You're essentially trying to find patterns in all of the sentences in that job description. And like I said, in some cases, this works amazing. In other cases, it does a pretty good job. In this case, it does provide some value, in my opinion, because it gives me a little bit more meat in terms of the types of skills they're looking for. And again, allows me to go and tailor my resume. And that, my friends, is how you build a word cloud. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed that video on a couple of tips on how to spruce up your resume. But at the same time, we also learned a bit of Python skills as well. Again, for somebody who's interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people, I can tell you that these 3 tips are definitely going to help you in your journey to find your next job. Hopefully you like this. If you do, please consider commenting and subscribing. Until next time, I'll see you later.